Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Inside Lowell podcast. I am your host, Teddy Panos, coming to you from the WellPoint Studios here in downtown Lowell. WellPoint is the only health plan offering healthcare benefits exclusively to Massachusetts members. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. And we thank our friends at WellPoint for helping to make this podcast possible. And we thank my friends who are joining me here for what I personally think is going to be a heck of a conversation, an informative conversation as well. Maybe an intelligent one. Who
I might step out.
The guy on the right of your screen will definitely see to that. Asa Stutz is on the left of your screen. He is our one of our team members here at Inside Lowell, and he's become, in many ways, our artificial intelligence, our AI.
Don't say expert. Thank you. Correspondent is king.
Our AI correspondent. I won't call you an expert.
No, but we will call someone in this room an expert. Yeah, it won't be me.
Joining Asa is Dr. Amit Deokar, who is an associate dean in the Manning School of Business at UMass Lowell. And just less than a month ago, right in October, you spoke at a conference about using a generative AI for research.
That's right. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, I mean, we are all learning. I mean, nobody's an expert really because the technology is moving so fast. But yeah, I mean, it's fun to learn and talk about it. Yeah.
How long have you been with the university, Doctor?
About 8 years.
8 years, okay. And is AI kind of your area of expertise now? You've kind of abandoned the other business stuff in favor of that?
Interestingly, I grew up with it. I started out with data analytics and machine learning. So this was the space I was in earlier. I've started focusing a lot more on generative AI applications and less so on other kinds of applications, but because this is so cool right now.
Okay, it definitely is, and there's a lot to cover, and I want to get to it as quickly as possible. I just quickly want to thank the rest of our sponsors. Of course, we told you about our friends at WellPoint. Let's not forget our friends at Washington Savings Bank. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. TMI Properties, quality and value at every price point. Find your perfect space with TMI. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to Greater Lowell since 1925. Francis E. Preventure, the agency Greater Lowell has counted on for nearly half a century. And by the Massachusetts Pirates, bringing all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City. And with that, we begin our discussion here. Dr. Deokar, for you, and for our audience at home who's not yet aware, might not be aware of what's going on in the world around them with AI and how quickly it's all developing, define for us AI, and if you could, as part of that, talk a little bit about the difference between regular AI and generative AI, which is kind of your field of expertise.
Sure. So when you think of AI, the term goes back several decades back. It was invented or coined by MIT as a researcher, and that actually came about based on the algorithms that he was developing, and the field in the computer science was developing around predicting and making connections, trying to simulate what the human brains would think like. And so AI has come a long way, seen many summers and winters, ups and downs. And a lot of what we are seeing right now has to do with how the technology has improved in terms of computation, the amount of data we are generating. But at the crux of it, AI is all about trying to mimic what humans can do in different ways, whether it's playing games intelligently, whether it's solving problems, trying to predict things, and many different things. Particularly when it comes to generative AI, these are AI models or algorithms that try to predict the next word or a token in the context, considering the context of the words that are provided. Or actually, right now, the model that it looks at when we use generative AI technology literally looks at all of the publicly available texts that have been used in training this model, which means that it has a lot of context with which it can provide what you might want to actually see in response to your query or your question, and that allows it to be seemingly intelligent and really provides us very interesting responses.
So speaking for the general public, it seems like everyone has known what AI is, but in the last couple of years, it's just exploded. So for the last decade, it seems, from what I've read, it seems like it started with the neural networks. And that's essentially a computer brain, essentially. And that is the ultimate goal of AI, is it not? Essentially to mimic the human brain?
That's exactly how it started, trying to mimic the human brain. In fact, the Nobel laureates for this year were both for physics and chemistry were awarded
Jeffrey
for...
Hinton?
Yeah.
And Demis.
Exactly.
I'm prepared.
That's why I brought him here, because I know none of this stuff. I'm just petrified of it.
But yeah, no. So for the last decade, to get us to this point, you had that breakthrough and AlexNet and whatever else. And then you had the transformers that came from Google.
So 2017, Google came up with a paper called as Attention is All You Need. So that was the transformative paper that really kickstarted this whole generative AI revolution, if you will, or took the neural networks to the next level, now being able to use context in a very unique way to consume all that information and provide intelligent responses.
And that does seem like the moment where a lot of these founders and leaders said, we could really do this. Like, that is kind of the breakthrough that has got us to here. Then you have the ChatGPTs and ChatGPT 4 especially. Everyone's like, whoa, we're entering another phase of humanity here, essentially humanity. And just that's the last 10 years to get us to here. Mm-hmm. Now, where do we go from here?
Well, who knows? But I think we definitely know that it only took 2 months for 100 million users to use ChatGPT. So it's crazy because, and that just shows the excitement around this field right now. And the pace at which this technology is becoming smarter, it doesn't show signs of plateauing anytime soon. But I'm sure it will. It's just that right now it's still in a very steep growth mode.
I want to be careful about sounding alarmist here, but I do want to address it, because if you follow some of the stuff on social media, there's a lot of fear around this. But in terms of everyday life, what are some of the current applications? Everyone has done ChatGPT and is asking it to research something and whatnot. But what are some of the other common everyday applications that people are using it for, or may have been using it for, without even realizing it? You know, it just kind of hit me like, well, aren't these self-driving automobiles, you know, these Teslas that you tell them to come get me from such and such restaurant because I parked you halfway across the city and it comes get you. In essence, that's using AI, right?
Definitely. That's definitely one form of AI, not generative AI, but definitely it's actually using neural network, but not for text, but for using vision, right? So computer vision, and trying to really see what's in front of it and then making decisions in terms of where it should go.
So is that a good example of general intelligence versus narrow AI? Trying to describe it to people as like a road, and you have little dead end streets along the way. They could be very, they could be Tesla, they can be the chatbots, but essentially, is that a form of narrow AI?
So I would say it's definitely expanding the capabilities. When you think of artificial general intelligence, or as people coin that term, but I think the general intelligence would include all sorts of capabilities.
Just encompasses
everything, and we are not there yet anywhere close. But these different technologies that you're describing, like the Teslas and, for example, the different kinds of robots, they are doing different artificial intelligent uses, right?
Okay, you said robots, and that was going to be my question, because your boss, Chancellor Julie Chen, likes to walk around campus there at UMass Lowell with this robotic dog. She had it escorted her during the day she became chancellor, and they started her term there. So robots are also using AI today, right?
Very much so. So the next phase where we might see this going is now these robots might use different kinds of capabilities in addition to motion and computer vision, but also using the generative AI, just like we see with ChatGPT and other technologies, to now become more multimodal and essentially, if you will, smarter. Again, it's not about being an alarmist, but really trying to see the potential of this technology in terms of what it can and cannot do. And we'll talk more about that.
Okay. So these are some of the ways it's being applied today. How will it be applied in, I was going to say coming years, but the way everything I'm reading is developing. We could be talking 2 weeks from now, people will start using it for other ways. So what are some of the other ways that it can be used to make life better for everyday people?
Yeah, so I think for everyday people, I would say it's taking things like planning a trip. So earlier we used to have to look for Google searches using keywords and then make sense of it based on what we want to do, what kind of mode of transport we want to use, what are some of the interesting things we like to see as a family, which restaurants we like, things like that. Now, if we are able to provide some of the information, the context in a plain English, then generative AI tools are smart enough that it can provide you with a very good itinerary for a place you want to visit. Maybe it's a 2-day trip or a 7-day trip, and it can come up with pretty good recommendations that a lot of my friends and even family members have used it. And that's one of the, I would say it's the easiest way of exploring generative AI if you want to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's everywhere. I mean, on my iPhone, when I go into the Safari search engine, it's AI now. It's the first response is always artificial intelligence. And just, you mentioned those robot dogs. Look at Mar-a-Lago right now. Trump and JD Vance, every time they're down
robot
there,
dogs are
they have
patrolling the grounds, right?
Yeah, and those aren't like a show. They're there for a purpose. They're in play.
All right. I'm also seeing people starting to use it to generate pictures. We've actually used AI generated pictures now on InsideLowell. People are making videos with them. Some of them are playful. They're doing some humorous things, some transformative things. Others are trying to recreate reality, things that actors and actresses used to do, or background sets. And I know there's a lot of fear in Hollywood that AI could make that entire community obsolete. Asa has actually.
Did you see the Coca-Cola ad?
Yes, that's the one you sent it to me yesterday, Asa. Is that a real possibility that AI is basically going to replace a lot of the jobs and the people that we kind of depend on today for a number of things, either for serious things or something like a night at the movies, relaxing?
So this has become an interesting a quote that I've heard from many AI researchers and practitioners is that AI is not going to replace you, but AI is going to replace somebody who does not use AI, right? So I think that's interesting because it's becoming more and more important to actually use AI in creative ways to improve your productivity. Going back to the example you mentioned about the Coca-Cola ad or ways that people are now using to generate even videos, right? So OpenAI has come up with a technology called Sora, which can generate videos based on text prompts. They have not yet released it to the public because of the possibilities of misuse.
The election.
And the election that was coming around, right? And now you see that elements of that with the Coca-Cola ad where people are not really liking the artificial aspect of how the Christmas holiday season is not depicted in the most human way. And that's interesting.
People hate it. I mean, when you look at the responses on Twitter or X, someone posts that video. It's amazing to watch knowing that this is just completely fake. Well, artificial. But the responses from people are angry. Well, we're going to hit.
Well, you can tell. I've been able, because then I also, having studied a little bit of, editing and video and some level of film, I could see that it was fake and I could point certain things out, especially the Coca-Cola trucks driving. But as the technology improves itself, does it have a chance to replace realism?
At some point it will, but I think the question is to what extent do we want to include humans and include the AI combination? Because at certain kinds of jobs are going to be replaced, but at the same time, there are new jobs that are going to be formed that we don't know of yet. And that's kind of what we've seen, how sort of transformative technologies have come about in the last century or so, right? Going back as far back as the electricity and then even the automobiles, etc. And then if you go back to even the computers and the internet, right? So the kinds of jobs that we've seen in the past 20, 30 years were probably not expected when the computers were just coming out. So we are probably at the cusp of something very similar, where there are probably new jobs that are on the horizon. We just don't know yet what they might look like.
Yeah, like a podcast. I mean, read it. 30 years ago, you wouldn't have thought this would be a career for people.
But they could also, I mean, I've seen they generate people, models, etc. They could
Actually, there are very good AI
a modeling podcast host, right?
Have you seen that? The Google's, I forget the name of it, the LLM notebook.
Yep, Notebook LLM. Actually, in my talk in October, we actually demonstrated Notebook LLM. So what we did was we took a set of meeting notes from one of our committees, and we just put that in Notebook LLM, and it created a podcast of 3 to 5 minutes, just like NPR or InsideLowell, and all of us.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
If you didn't know, you would not know that this is artificial intelligence. It sounds like just two clear hosts that are very smart. It's amazing.
All right. And now it's even coding. I saw that, right? It's writing computer.
It's
code,
definitely
right?
can understand many languages, pretty much all the ones that you can think of with coding. And it is doing it behind the scenes. So for example, if you ask it to do some computational work, like just that involves some quantitative stuff, behind the scenes, it's writing the program. And if you want, you can, of course, look at it. But if you don't have to as a layperson, you can rely on it. Of course, it makes sense to actually critique it and ask for explanations, things like that, so that you are actually sure of what it's providing. So that's where I think it becomes where we have to have the guardrails and be very inquisitive about what it's providing us.
So I think we saw the headline a couple of weeks ago. I sent it to you that 20% of Google code is now written by AI. But once we look deeper into it, it's like, not exactly. It's more basic functions, adding a couple words here. Because the headline is like, whoa, that's wild. Then you look deeper into it, and it's like they're helping out.
And that's interesting that you say, because I mean, when we teach our students, we see this all the time. Like students who are familiar with some of these concepts with programming and coding are much better off when they use generative AI tools to increase their learning abilities, versus students who may not be exposed to these concepts yet. And if they are given the same tool, they are not able to generate code or generate code in the same level of.
Have you ever done an experiment? Like say, hey, you tell
anecdotally,
yeah. Okay, you've got one going on in your mind?
Yeah, we exactly. Working with students, I see this right now, is that, and that just shows the value that we still have in terms of what we provide through different, processes like education, learning, podcasting. So there is a lot of value. I think the question will be what is the value that we will have to nail down in the presence of AI.
All right, we are here in the WellPoint Studios. I'm Teddy Panos. Asa Stutz is here, our InsideLowell AI contributor. We've got our AI expert here as well, Dr. Amit Deokar, an associate dean at the Manning School of Business at UMass Lowell, and someone whose focus is now centered on AI. So we've talked about the wonderful things that AI can do, and there is a lot of promise there. So why are so many of the people who were in on the ground floor walking away and saying, I don't like where this is going? There's a fear out there that with every invention, that despite the fact it was created to benefit mankind, people with bad intentions will use it to also hurt mankind. Is that a legitimate fear?
I think like any tool, I mean, AI is a generative AI, or AI in general is a tool, right? So it could be used in many ways. And of course, people in different, with good intentions in different fields are going to use it intelligently and in creative ways to solve problems, to really address issues that are of importance. But there are also going to be people who are going to use them or misuse them, I should say. And that's a genuine concern for sure, especially when you see things like fake news around us and fake reviews on products like retail website. That's becoming a real concern. And so it's very difficult, because AI detectors, so to speak, that were able to detect AI generated content are no longer able to keep up. There are AI detectors can no longer be relied because it's become a cat and mouse game. The technology is advancing so fast
Right,
that the AI detectors are falling behind.
All right. I mean, I've seen some videos out there of conversations between President Biden and former President Obama, you know,
Right.
relating to the campaign and whatnot, and they look good, but you know, if you're thinking, you're like, this doesn't make sense, and you can tell that that's fake news. But what about things like you see, like the military uses, potential military uses, and I'm pretty sure the United States Department of Defense is full on into trying to take advantage of this, and I don't think they're doing it, you know, necessarily to help students write a paper, but I almost get the sense as they're rushing to do it before one of our enemies does it. How much of a threat is this from a safety, a military perspective, especially as we see like more and more robots being put into use? Somebody's controlling these things, right?
Well, the autonomous ones, but
Definitely, the drones that we are seeing that are being used. I mean, they are using a lot of it are AI driven, right? So I think
Actually, I just randomly watched a video today of an autonomous drone getting taken down by an autonomous machine gun. This is from the military, and it's like, what are we doing here? Maybe we should slow down.
so we
with
don't know
this.
all the applications, but you're right. I mean, they are using it in creative ways, and there is a race between nations around this. China being one of them, and definitely. We have an advantage with OpenAI and some of the companies that have been at the forefront of this technology. Now the question is, how can we use those to have applications that also stay up front? Right?
I think that Biden and President Xi, maybe a week ago, at the G20, signed an agreement where no AI is involved with the nuclear weapons. So that's just happened maybe 3 or 4 days ago, which is a good thing, the fact that they can get together and realize, like, okay, let's start here at the very, very top of the danger scale and maybe work our way down. So we're on the board.
And also, I think related to that, President Biden had the executive order on AI, which is kind of interesting. We haven't seen an executive order on a technology advancement in a long, long time. I think this is one of the unique areas where now people are really thinking, nations are thinking about the guardrails and policies that are needed, right?
Yeah, I saw one of the groups today. Maybe I sent it to you, but they came out and said they think the United States should do a Manhattan Project. Like, eventually, once this technology gets so powerful, and it's close, a year or two away from achieving AGI, which we haven't talked about yet, but we will get to. But, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So, what was I saying?
You were talking.
I looked at my phone.
You're talking about
the Manhattan Project.
The
sorry.
Manhattan
I'm
Project.
trying to look it up. So they came out and recommended we do a Manhattan Project, saying it's too dangerous. No company, some tech nerds in San Francisco can control the most powerful weapon system on Earth, which is what AGI, ASI would be. The government has to take it over. They have to take it over for the military purpose. They have to take it over for the energy that comes from it, the parts of the healthcare. So do you think there's going to possibly be some sort of Manhattan Project? And if they're to do one, they would need to do it really soon.
That's true. I mean, there is a possibility of that, and we wouldn't know that anytime soon because this is there's secrecy around these things.
Sure.
But I think there is a potential for it because the applications are definitely there. And the question is, which other applications we may not be anticipating yet, like the one that we talked about, generating voice. The reason it's not become so publicly used yet is because of the potential for how it may be used, right? So those kind of technologies might be used behind the scenes for other applications that we don't know of yet, and could have different, immense potential.
And to see where we're at. Eventually, I think in the next month or so, OpenAI, who appears to be the leader in the clubhouse as far as getting close to AGI, they're going to release the O1 model. They've released a preview in O1 Mini, and people saw it, and they saw what it can do with math and with biology and all these benchmarks. And it's like, whoa. And the O1 full model is coming out soon. Again, you're going to see that and be blown away. And that's going to be a year old. Like, we were just before the show messing around with the search function on OpenAI. And when was your last training run? And it was in April of 2023. So the most modern thing that we have is a year old. When you get OpenAI's O1, it's going to be unbelievable the next month. even that will be a year old. So we're much further along, and with exponential growth, that year at this point in time could be incredible.
And additionally, I mean, OpenAI just came out with the search capabilities, which is basically competing with all of the big search engines like Google and Bing, and that's definitely putting it on pace with where it can use information real time, really searching the web for information. So one of the issues that people have really talked about before is this concept of hallucination, that generative AI can make up stuff, right? Because essentially it's predicting that next word or token, and it could come up with words that are seemingly correct or seemingly
nonsense, gibberish. Yeah, right.
Yeah. But I think with more and more context becoming available, and more so the access to the web that is being incorporated, this is going down sooner and sooner. I don't think at any point this would completely go away, but I think the percentage will significantly reduce based on how we are using it, in the context you're using it.
So I'm kind of heartened to hear that our governments are trying to be responsible, and I'm still not sure I want my own government to have some of this ability, but I certainly want them to have it before any foreign governments.
Yes, you very much do.
But where's the protection from the hackers? I mean, you've got hackers, ostensibly 16-year-old kids sitting in mom and dad's basement who are able to hack into the leading banks across the world, medical systems. The Pentagon has been hacked. How much danger is it from having some of these folks hack into AI systems and therefore control some of these things that we believe there are safeguards in, such as cars driving themselves, and or plane, airplane, electronics that are kind of guiding the flight until the pilot has to actually land it?
I mean, some of these movies that we've seen, I think these are scenarios that could be alarming, and this could potentially be becoming true. But I think those are far-fetched scenarios, I think. But with security, I think it's always the weakest link, right? So and the question is, what is the weakest link here? And oftentimes it's the humans, and so it's oftentimes the insider threat is information security. Insider threat is the biggest threat out there. So we have to be watchful of that. The technology is definitely there, but I think it's in terms of guardrails. I think OpenAI and other companies, they are becoming more and more aware of this. I don't think we will be in a position to say at any point we are hack proof.
I don't think so. On a national level, maybe they'll do much better. The Pentagon, the CIA, the White House. On a local level, the city of Lowell, oh boy, I think there's no way of stopping what's coming.
But at the same time, these models that are being trained are giant models. These are models that you and I could not be training on our computers. These literally require massive amounts of computing power. So the ability of the hackers to actually use these models would be kind of guided by their access to these large LLMs or large language models, if you're talking about it in that context. But
so they'd have to be at that level, and to get to that level, so people know, you need kind of there's a million things that go into it, but the three key ingredients are: you need the humans with the algorithm and the computer scientists, you need GPUs, you need compute power, and then you need raw power, nuclear power. Those three combined can get you to AGI. And then from there, you're using more and more and more power. So you're saying for a hacker to beat that, they'd have to be on that scale, and it's highly unlikely that they'd ever get there.
Yeah, at least that's what I'm seeing. But I think definitely there are loopholes that we may not be looking at right now. And that's something that I think our government hopefully is now, investigating to see what guardrails are needed. One of the big things is the guardrails needed around ethical use of it. And that's something you and I and all people need to keep in mind.
All right. And before I let Asa ask about get us really into AGI, I do want to talk about the power thing since he just brought it up. We're seeing that companies like Google, Amazon are now saying, hey, we'll pay for nuclear power plants, just get them built. And, generating the power that's going to be necessary to allow these things to happen. Some folks might believe that that'll be the end of the green movement, unless you're talking about, I should say, the wind and solar movement, unless you're talking about the green energy movement as nuclear only, because there's no way that wind and solar and some of these other green technologies that we're trying to get to now can ever power what is coming for our computer power demands. Accurate?
Yeah, I think we are fairly accurate. This is a debate right now. These are competing demands on power, right? I think on one hand we want to see the developments, the energy needed for it is massive, and the sources for these energies are cannot be always at this point green, which leads us back to the circle. So I think we have a very vicious and wicked problem at hand, and I don't think there is a clear solution there. But that's something that we as humans have been all along, good at problem solving. So this is where I think we have to come up with creative ideas.
Well, I've been fascinated because UMass Lowell is kind of leading the way on some. I'm drawing a blank on the hydrogen, but also on this hydrogen energy thing that they've been kind of playing around with it, running some testing sites out there.
Yes,
by
I've heard
South
about
Campus.
it, but
is that part of preparing for AI?
So I think those are all parts of the small puzzles at different points, right? So I think definitely these are research advances that eventually the hope is they will help towards find a bigger solution to this, right? And I'm not plugged into all of the research advances in that particular space, but I think definitely there is that potential.
Yeah, so now it's a bit of a interesting situation where you have all these large tech companies that have all signed green pledges and deals, carbon neutral by 2020, whatever it is. And you look at them all now when they're realizing how much power they need to use for these AI models, and they're all like 60% higher than they should be, 50%. And you know what? They've realized it doesn't matter. This is it. It's the race for AGI. So sorry if we make you mad. But they don't actually.
There's going to be a lot of disappointed young people with blue and green hair dye, right?
Here's the weird part: is that if you get to AGI, you really can crack everything you need for abundant energy. You can figure out fusion pretty quickly. You really get solar nailed down, and you truly will have the world that they want. This absolutely green, carbon neutral planet. But to get there, you've got to crank that dial up as high as it's ever gone in human history. It's weird that they don't just come out and say that. Because again, you have young kids going to the Louvre and throwing soup on the Mona Lisa, and it's like, someone needs to tell me, don't worry about that. Like, just give us a couple years. We're really close. We're going to give you the world you want. But to get there, this is the only path. And that's the way it is. I just wonder why they don't come out and say it.
You're nodding in agreement, which scares me if he's that much in touch.
So I think there is a potential for that. Now the question is the speed, right? I think in terms of how quickly will we be able to reach AGI? I think there is a large debate around that in terms of first of all, what AGI means, because different people interpret it differently as well. I don't think AI is going to be conscious at any point soon, if that's what some people think of AGI to be, or the general intelligence.
Yeah, so the fear is AGI is when the machines start thinking better than the humans, and then we're all done.
Exactly.
Is that kind of safe to say that's the big fear with AGI? Or
that's one camp that is saying where they would be essentially more intelligent than humans. Absolutely right. But on the other hand, it's really about the capabilities rather than just and combining them, right? So in terms of whether as far as capabilities goes, can these capabilities be jointly used to solve wicked problems like the one we are talking about? And it has the potential to do that, and not necessarily in a way that is destroying the ability or the goals for that we as humans have. right? Is it competing against us as humans in terms of what the goal that the machine has? So that's where the debate is. Is the machine going to have the goals that are only advancing its own goals, or is it going to be aligned with what we as humans have as goals for the machine?
But if the wrong person is involved in the programming of that machine and they program it to start trying to outthink humans and eventually surpass them,
it's delicate.
It may do, right? It's
and that's why people are really skeptical about this. But and so the vast amount of energy right now is being spent on really building it. But at the same time, there's this one camp where, a couple years back there was this petition around pausing the
6-month pause,
6-month pause around AI. That didn't go anywhere because there might be one camp that is pausing, but it's not going to pause all of the other things that are happening.
And it's definitely not going to pause China. It's just the reality of it, right?
Right. So I think given all of this context, I think the technology is going to keep moving at pace. And then the question is, at what point will we reach so-called AGI? And I don't think that question has been answered yet.
So, a question: do you have a guess? All anyone can do is guess. And you like the head of Anthropic. There's only about 5 companies in 2 countries that could possibly achieve it, just because of everything we talked about, all the energy and GPUs and compute power. It's a very small field, and one of them will win it. But Dario says 2026. Elon last night said 2026. Others have, Ray Kurzweil has been saying 2029.
Yeah,
Do you have a guess?
I'm probably going to go with 2029 just because to make it more realistic, because I think we are seeing a lot of pace with the technology, but there is also this need for the policy and the guardrails to catch up as well, because that needs to develop at a rapid pace as well if we are to actually use it in a positive way to solve problems.
Yeah, that's where it gets a little scary, because we've mentioned OpenAI multiple times because, in my opinion, do you agree that they're probably slightly ahead in this race right now?
Yeah, I think so.
They seems to be. But they have these alignment teams, and the alignment teams are supposed to be here. This is the way we want you to treat humans. This is humanity. This is what's good. This is what's bad. I think they've gone through 3 different alignment teams in the last year or so, and one of them involved a guy named 𝐖𝐞𝐥𝐿, who's my favorite AI.
One of the co-founders.
Yes, he's one of the founders, and brilliant guy. And he tried to actually overthrow the CEO, but he left, and his whole team left. And the team before him left. And a month ago, the new team just left. And it's like, man, these are really important people. The technology is important, but if you don't align it perfectly with humanity or pretty close to it, you could have other issues that could be just devastating.
Yeah, there is a lot of turnover in OpenAI, not just OpenAI, but in general, these companies. Part of it is some people are really worried about some of the directions that the company might be going. Yep. But it's also about perhaps they have the competing technology that they're developing and spinning out different companies and technologies.
Oh, so yeah, no, it's definitely, it's that's why it's so weird, because it's hidden technology. They don't come out and tell you what's happening behind the scenes. So some guy will come out and leave and then start his own company because there's an easy $1 billion to be had. But then someone else will leave and not just be like, I'm just going to the woods. And it's like, okay, what's happening here? It makes you very curious and sometimes nervous.
It certainly does. We're here in the WellPoint Studios. Teddy Panos along with Asa Stutz, Dr. Amit Deokar from UMass Lowell's Manning School of Business, and one of the AI experts and generative AI experts on the campus. So let's kind of bring this back to people who might be watching this and may have gotten lost in the technical stuff. And
sorry,
I don't know what it is and what to believe, but how should we be thinking? The average person out there who's, they're just trying to raise a family and make enough money at their job to support that family. What do they need to be thinking about right now? And do they need to start thinking about how they can incorporate this into their career so that they don't become obsolete? Because that is the great fear, that AI is going to make a number of trades obsolete. And I've heard everything from professors to surgeons. If you can kind of train these robots to be able to do surgeries with the precision that's required at times. I mean, well, what should I be thinking about going forward?
So I think I really like in that context Ethan Mollick, who is actually a professor at Wharton School of Business, and I follow him. And another person is Ali Miller. Both of those are very, at the forefront of this. And some of the guidelines that I've been hearing, I think they resonate very much with me. So Ethan actually talks about these 4 principles. The first one is he calls always invite AI to the table. So any kind of task that we are doing, it would be best to actually think about, can I use AI to do it? And that's a great way of dipping your toes and actually experimenting with it. I think the rule of thumb, they say, is roughly spending 10 hours over a period of time to actually get familiar with the technology and what it can and cannot do. So that's a good start, I think, for people who may not be as familiar with the technology. And then the second thing is always being the human in the loop, because as you're asking questions, it's the first time you're going to get perhaps going to go like, oh, well, it's not giving me interesting answers, or that's it. But then you have to keep up with it. You have to interact with it, converse with it, and over time you're going to see that it's going to actually produce responses that will be very, very useful and interesting and intelligent, right? And so but at the same time, you have to then ask questions. Okay, is this useful? Is this correct? And that's where you need to be the human in the loop. And then I think there is a sort of the third idea that you have to think about AI as a technology, which probably is the worst that you will ever use because of, again, all of the technology growth that we are seeing, that today's GPT might be the slowest one, and there is much faster, more intelligent one coming. And I would say the last thing that he talks about, and I think is also that we have to treat AI like a person. And because as we think about AI, I think it's about giving it a persona, giving it a role, because the more context you give it, the more responsive and relevant responses you are going to get back. So those are some guidelines for us to think about, I think, when we put or use AI in practice. But yeah, I think that's a good starting point.
So should journalists, will take our profession, he drives a truck, so he may be okay for a little while, until the self-driving truck's robot learns how to offload the truck and load it again. But
I think we're all in trouble.
There's talk that journalists might become obsolete, that people are incorporating AI into their writing. And I'll be honest with you, we wrote a piece, one of our most read pieces, one of our most visited web pages was an AI April Fool's joke that came up with a river Uber service for the city of Lowell. So, I mean, as it gets smarter and smarter, there may not be a role for humans in a lot of writing, and again, not to pick on your craft,
so I think
teaching.
No, I think actually you're right, and because there is actually a study being that was done in terms of looking at all of the different roles in terms of jobs and trying to see how AI could be affecting those. And actually, professors and teachers were, I think, business professors were like the 20th on the top of the list. And so I should be worried, but
that's why you're delving into the AI part of it. You need some job security, right?
But then we start looking deeper and think about what jobs really are. Yes, I teach, but I also do a lot of things. I do research, I do advising, I talk to students, helping with their problems. So there are a lot of different things that are involved in a job than a specific task. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where I think AI comes into place, to think about which of our tasks in our jobs are going to be perhaps be maybe offloaded to AI, and maybe we are able to spend that time either doing something productive with our work, or maybe for our well-being and with our families, and use that time wisely, right? So it might be a question of really rethinking what we do in our jobs.
Maybe we can finally get to that 4-day work week. Yeah. Have you used AI to put together a class presentation, a lesson plan for a day, or even in that conference that you just came back from in late October? Did you use AI in your presentation?
Of course. I use a website or a tool called beautiful.ai. So what you essentially can do with it is you can start out with ChatGPT to give an outline based on what I have in mind. And then based on it, I could ask it to create a set of PowerPoints outline, of course, and then I can throw this into Beautiful.ai, which can generate a set of slides. Now, definitely it gets me up to a 60% mark there, which definitely saves me a lot more time than if I were to start from scratch. And that's where the power is. Now I can spend the time to actually fine tune it, make it really bring in the ideas that I really want to convey in a good way.
So going back to your kind of common man question, I've got an immediate concern. My oldest daughter is a senior in high school, going to be going off to college. And the more I learn, I don't know what is a good profession for. I don't know what a good career is. I don't know what a good major is. And I've hit the point where I want to learn and know everything. And I realize that I can't play offense, so I kind of have to play defense, what not to do, because some of these careers and professions are going away. And some of these degrees, you know, we're not rich people. So if my daughter ends up with some college debt with a degree that has kind of gone by the wayside, like she could be in a tricky spot for life. And I'm genuinely concerned and trying to avoid that. I still don't have the answers. She's gone to, she wants to go biology now, which I think is a good idea. But I could be very wrong.
Tell it either she learns how to code AI or becomes a plumber and an electrician.
The coders are gone. Coders are probably number one on that list.
How much
Definitely.
danger is it that people will stop thinking, though? Because I understand why you teachers are afraid of plagiarism. Hey, AI, write me a 10-page paper on the American Revolution. Boom. I'm all done.
We just had a summit at UMass Lowell on we call it a cheating summit, but really it was around not just AI and the use of it, but really thinking about what might be some of the issues that we are seeing, the underlying issues, right? And so what we are seeing is, things haven't really changed that much with technology. It's probably become somewhat easier, right, in terms of why a certain population may be resorting to cheating in different ways, right? But I think it comes down to actually using and learning. In fact, AI, I think the biggest advantage that it's providing is it's actually leveling the playing field for students. It's actually making personalized learning a real possibility. Students who cannot afford tutors, students can actually use generative AI to get explanations for concepts that may be hard to understand at first, but get explanations at maybe a 5th grade level or 8th grade level or a 10th grade level, right? And so that ability to use the tool is providing far more benefits in the learning process than it's actually providing, all these things that we are seeing with some increase in cheating. I think that's inevitable, but I think, again, I think we are seeing, when we did a survey, we call it the AI readiness survey with our students and faculty, we are seeing a lot of creative use cases that both our faculty are using in increasing their pedagogy and in making it creative, but also students who are actually using it for that personalized learning and actually enhancing their learning process.
So how are you going to draw that line? Because in my day, I write a paper on the American Revolution. All right, so I spend a day or two in the library. I'd get my encyclopedias. Well, now Google, my laptop is my encyclopedia. So instead of pulling open the books, I just type a question into the search bar. Eventually, I'm just going to ask AI, what were the key battles and why were they significant? And is that cheating? Do I just basically have to take everything that it spits out and just find a way to creatively write it myself?
It's a great question, right? So I think there are various ways of looking at it. One is, what do we want our students to learn in a given course or a subject, right? And it differs from whether it's an English course or a history course or a business course, right? And depending on that course, so let's say if it's a marketing course, my goal is for a student to be able to develop a marketing plan. Now, whether we should use AI for that initial ideas, Sure, but then what else can we do with our pedagogy? So that's where I think the way we assess students in the courses will probably need to change. Rather than relying on simply reports, a lot more will have to be relied on, say, presentations. Can students defend what they are writing in their papers? Can they understand it? Can they present it? Because the communication skills are still going to be just as valuable in terms of how people connect with other professionals, other colleagues, right? So those are the aspects that will become more prominent. Now, again, with other courses like, say, English, writing is still important, but then it can probably help with the editorial stuff, but probably not the same way in terms of the actual tone and the voice. It's getting close there. I think we are seeing a lot of improvement in the technology as well, but not the originality. Oftentimes we confound or conflate originality with novelty, right? So I think we get a lot of novel ideas with ChatGPT and generative AI, but they're not necessarily original in that sense. So that's where I think there is still a lot of value in what we do.
Nice. Overall, it just seems like UMass Lowell is primed to really capitalize on this, just because you've got your department, they've always had a great nuclear engineering, they've got the nanotech. It's like they have everything that's going to be really important in the next 5 to 50 years.
I'm looking at some of the names I see associated with the link development, and I'm thinking Chancellor Chen and the university's all in on this.
Yeah, if I could buy stock in UMass Lowell, I would.
Definitely. I think with the link project, we are bringing in companies. Draper is one of them, but there are others that are coming in as well. So that's definitely an incubator for companies who can come there, seek the talent from the university, but also for graduates to actually work at these companies and really be part of the city and
start paying some taxes and going to the Athenian Corner restaurant.
There we go.
It all comes full circle.
So to summarize it, there's a lot to learn and take advantage of. We don't need to fear, but we need to be cautious. Safe to say?
I think so, for sure. Yeah, I think there is definitely a lot of potential in many different areas and applications. But again, we have to be human and be cautious about different things. Yeah, you rightly said.
And how soon after I say goodbye and we hit the stop record button on this podcast will everything that we just talked about for the last 51 minutes become obsolete? 6 months or 6 days?
Exponential growth, right?
Yeah.
It's hard for people to fully understand and appreciate it.
Wait till the O1 is released, right?
Exactly. No, we're in wild times. And I think big picture, just the last thing I'll say is you've been following Moore's Law for the last whatever it is, 60, 80 years. Gordon Moore, is that his name? It's one of the founders of Intel, and he just came up with this law that said, hey, I think it was chips back then, double every
the processing speed months, if you double
every 18 months to 2 years. It's doubles and doubles and doubles. And it's just remarkably done that. You look at the curve of technology in the world, but now we're at the point where it's, instead of doubling, it's 10xing, and it's just blown it out of the water. If you just followed Moore's Law, we would get to AGI by 2029. Now we're on this other path that's even faster, where 2029 seemed crazy. Now it's maybe conservative. Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. There is a lot that AI has to offer, and I think it makes sense to actually use it and in our daily lives to actually make good use of it. I think that's where I would leave it. Yeah.
Alrighty. Dr. Amit Deokar, UMass Lowell, Manning School of Business. Thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it.
I've learned a ton. I got to go back and rewatch this though, because my head is spinning even more now than it was preparing for this. But we certainly appreciate you joining us, and we got to bring you back, okay? As this keeps changing, I think it's important that people. I don't think one thing Asa has convinced me of is the need to start understanding this and figuring out how to take advantage of it so I don't get left behind.
Yeah, I learned a lot from the conversation. Thank you, Asa. Thank you.
You learned from him?
Yeah. See, we all learn from each other, yeah.
AI, Asa intelligence, as we're going to call Asa Stutz, as always, thank you to you.
Thanks for having me.
Dr. Deokar, thank you. And thank all of you for watching us here as well. Inside Lowell, as we like to say, if Lowell is your home, this is your place. Till next time, stay safe, everybody, and watch out for the robots.